Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation, Questions That Spur the Right Change. We've had a great conversation already, and we're going to finish it up today. And if you like this episode, please hit like, subscribe, the bell notification so you don't miss one episode as it drops. And be thinking about a friend you might want to share this content with, because we would love to be able to help others as well. And now, the rest of our conversation. Yeah.
I mean, because that's part of the conversation of why we did it the way we did on these issues was that I remember you addressing them specifically, but in series or in a message, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like you spent 45, 50 minutes talking about these issues in a context of the Jesus path forward. And so it didn't leave room for misunderstanding or misinterpretation in a, 27 words on a tweet or, a quippy photo with a phrase underneath it or, a 1 minute clip that, something like that. Those things just don't, while they may say a statement, but they can be completely taken out of context.
Yeah.
Right.
And they offer their own confusion.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not detailed enough
Exactly.
to bring the heart of Christ to this,
Right.
which is what my words are meant.
Right.
My life is meant, and especially as I represent Heights Church
Right.
and as a pastor, that's what I'm meant to bring to this conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've got my own personal opinion. We could
Sure.
do that one-on-one,
Right.
but publicly, I know what my goal is, and it's to be on mission. But where will they know that? So I know that we had to figure out where will we do this, and we actually went to our people and said, listen, eventually we figured out, okay, I'm going to speak to this publicly.
Yep.
But I'm not going to speak to it on social media.
Right.
Right. And if you want to know what I think about these ideas, you need to listen to the weekend messages where I can speak about it more fully. And I had to come to the place where I could literally just say, listen, I need you to understand. If you want to know my opinion, I'm going to speak to it here. You're not going to hear me here.
Right.
On social media, it's not going to be there. But if you really want to know what I think,
Right.
well, take the time to listen in on the weekends. And if you're not willing to give me your time there, then you know what? This isn't a conversation we're going to have.
Well,
And you had to be okay with
I
that.
had to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people who rejected it and said,
Right.
well, you're wrong. And
Okay.
that's just how I choose. I get to choose
You get to choose.
how to have this conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was really important. Where will people know it? That's really good.
Yeah,
we know we're not going to please them all.
Yes.
Man alive. Every room I was in, no matter what I said, it felt like I was dividing it in half, and then that next group in half. And by the time you're done, it's like a tenth of what you started with. It's like,
Yeah.
So unashamedly choose your path and move forward.
Yes.
So whatever your message is, I think is what I want our listeners to understand is you don't have to do what we did, but what is your goal?
Right.
And then move forward. But you're not going to bring everybody with you. So if you're worried that your right decision, reflecting the heart of God, is not going to bring everybody with you, you're correct.
It's not going to.
But that's still what our calling as a church.
Right.
And I don't actually, frankly, get to have another one. Jesus didn't
exactly
give me that
right.
option.
Right.
I represent him
Yeah.
100% of the time. But choose your path, move forward. And there's another thing on here that I think is really important. I put a star by it. We need to give people as leaders something to talk about, or they will fill in the gaps.
You got to unpack that.
Yeah. There was a gentleman that I spoke to in the pandemic, and I was really surprised as he was talking to me about his questions and his rants. And he was quoting someone who I would not have ever thought he would go to for his opinion.
Interesting.
And as he's quoting to me, my first reaction was, what are you listening to him for?
Right.
You know better than that. But in the moment, I realized, well, he couldn't listen to me because I didn't tell him what I thought about it.
Interesting.
And it was one of those moments where I realized, this is the ugly part of it, where I realized, I didn't lead.
Yeah, you couldn't be silent.
Right.
We were
I
in
didn't
such a
lead.
crisis as a nation, honestly,
Yeah.
that we couldn't wait until the dust settled.
Right.
You had to figure out your path forward and
Yeah.
make your statement.
And I needed to make my statement. I needed to declare where I am. And I'm not saying that and here's the part that confused me. I thought I needed to choose one of the sides culture gave me.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no.
And it was in that moment
Yeah.
I started to realize, no. I need to choose where I'm going to stand.
Yes.
And that's where that whole picture came from, where Jesus, in my mind, I could picture Jesus stepping out on the ground, and then he makes his declaration, which is the Gospels.
Right.
Jesus was surrounded by political opinions.
Oh yeah.
He didn't choose any of them.
Right.
No.
Not one of them. And in fact, he was at least 95% of agreement with the Pharisees, but he never chose their political side. And it was a political side as much as it was a religious side.
Yeah.
He never chose them.
Right.
He said, guess what? This is where the heart of God is. Get here.
Right.
He didn't go to them. He called them to himself.
Right.
And I think that's where the church needs to be.
Yeah.
And that's where I decided we needed to be. That's where I needed to be specifically. And that's how we started finding our language and how I began understanding this Jesus path forward piece. And so that's what I mean. But I did realize that I had not spoken directly and taken these head on. And therefore, I was leaving people to look for another opinion.
Yeah.
And that was not right. That wasn't good of me. And so they did. They found those opinions. But that helped me, though, in this last summer, as we started seeing lead-ups to Roe v. Wade, the election that we just went through, where we were able to take some time and address those head-on. We didn't talk about it incessantly, but we did take it. We did speak to it.
Yeah.
And we told people what we believe.
Right.
In regards to God's heart on the matter. I wasn't being political,
No.
but I was speaking to the heart of God. And it helped people. I know it did because they came to me and they told me how it helped them.
Right.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot less of the confusion of other opinions being inserted in there. And so we were able to lead this
Yes.
time. And it wasn't perfect, and it's not perfect, but it was better. It was better.
Well, I think anytime that you are able to lead with sharing the heart of God
Yeah.
and not leave people to understand that what they are hearing from culture is the way to think.
Yeah.
Because at most of the time it can be pretty directly opposite.
Yeah.
And so to lead with the heart of God gave them a confidence that they knew what position to take. And many people, depending on how long you've served Christ, you may not have known certain cultural differences with what the truth of God's word declares.
So true. So true. And the options that culture serves up to us,
Yes.
it's rarely good, either one of
Exactly
them.
right.
Which is why God's culture has to come.
Yeah.
And it has to be voiced, and we are here, not in arrogance or obnoxiously, but we're here to present those
Right.
things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So one of the other things is we started looking for ways that we could galvanize people together. Culture was trying to divide, intentionally so, and we were looking for ways to galvanize people together. So how are some of the ways that we did that?
Well, again, as we were talking about the Jesus Path Forward, we began looking to how can we serve our community? How do we stay on mission? How can we serve them?
Yeah.
How can we serve our schools? Because we were having, the kids were no longer they weren't in
Yeah, they
classrooms.
couldn't be in classes.
And so there were all these, it was just pockets and pockets of challenges and problems. And so what can we do? And I remember one of the things that we started doing was really leaning into, we call it reach out outreach, but it's collecting and gathering dry goods, canned foods
Oh, yeah.
for our neighboring food
Yeah,
closet. And
right.
I'm telling you, our people love that. Like they've leaned in, and it is, I don't even know how many truckloads and truckloads and truckloads.
It was a lot.
We're still doing it.
We're still doing it.
Like this is
every
something
month.
we still do every month. And I love that it's continued on. And, you know, I drive by that food bank twice a day because it's part of my commute to and from church.
Yeah.
And on, I think it's Tuesdays or Wednesdays, you see lines of cars of people in need getting ready for that place. And so we're, you know, as the church, we're leaning into the practical needs of helping people. Right. I mean, that's, again, it's, for me, the Jesus path forward is about raising the value of people and the person, because that's what Jesus always did. Is you're valuable to me. The person is valuable to me. That lost sheep is valuable to me. That lost coin is valuable to me. Like, you are valuable. And so culture wants to divide and derail and distract and diminish the value of people. And Jesus is always saying, no. You're much more valuable to me than that. That's so we also did, I mean, you got to talk about the schools. What did we do for the schools? Because I don't actually know the entirety of the details of what we did for the schools.
But I feel like one of the things that we did, we know that we donated headsets to 1,700 kids.
Yeah, in first, second, and third grade.
Lower elementary grades.
Yeah.
They could not, literally, they did not have the ability to have those on their own. They could not do school at home because they didn't have those. So we made that possible for them.
We did,
But the other part of all that, which that was awesome, but the other piece was that we knew it was a very strugglesome time for the administrators of schools and the teachers.
Yes.
And especially when they started going back to school a little bit, that was still strugglesome. And we made balloon arches. I mean, when those kids were welcomed back to their campuses, it was like a celebration. And we made that happen, that part. We also did gift baskets for the teachers because we knew that they were at an all-time low or high stress.
And superintendent told us they are just depressed over all of this.
So we said, what can we do? And that's what we did. We reached out and blessed them in that way. Because again, like Justin said, we want to add value to people.
We do.
That's what Jesus would have us to do.
And just so people know, the response of that was huge. We actually we were given 2 awards through COVID, 2 separate years. The MVP award for the school district was given to our church for helping these kids during COVID and their teachers. The superintendent of the schools herself, personally, thanking me, wrote me letters. It was amazing. Highlighted us at the awards banquet 2 separate years. It's amazing. Yeah. And then also to see principals reaching out to us for prayer. I think you actually met with one,
I did. I had coffee with one of the principals.
It's amazing.
It was amazing time. It was a God-ordained coffee date.
That goodwill created opportunity for good news.
I love that.
Oh, man.
I mean, that's
every one of those
powerful.
kids knew that those headsets came from us.
Yeah.
That's great.
That happened because we just stepped into a need. Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's wonderful and it's important. And I know a lot of people have issues with schools, but here's the thing. Those are our kids. Those are our grandkids. Those are our neighborhood kids. We don't want to run.
No,
we want to be there.
Yes.
And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's challenging. But those teachers are in our church and we need to support them and want to. And so it's messy. And to use the word I'm pretty sure you made up, it's confusing some. What is the word you said that word?
Did I say something?
Strugglesome. Yes, that's a great word. Did you make that up?
Probably.
That's
you know
a
how I
great
do
word.
things.
That's a Cherylism.
It's a mashup. Right there.
Strugglesome. Yes.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I'll claim it.
So they were strugglesome,
Trouble.
and we stepped into that. So love it. Looking for ways to galvanize. I know that we did that. The gatherings, we just did our best to really reconnect people. The Devos, we started daily Devos and connected them right away in the first weeks. That was huge. So I think the other thing here is we're talking about this, what to do in times of tribalism, politics, and other dividing factors. As we managed expectations, we realized that we had to do that. Otherwise, expectations were managing us.
They were.
And we were
it was
failing.
Everybody's expectation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
couldn't be done.
You know what's funny about the funny thing about expectations is everybody has them.
Yeah.
Nobody realizes it.
Right.
But
So
I mean,
true.
it's just, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we all
reality.
say we don't
Yeah.
have any.
Oh, I don't have any expectations. And
But
yet I get
then-
irritated.
As I give you an ultimatum.
Yeah. But then it doesn't go the way you thought it was, then you know you had it.
Yeah, it's not my expectation. It's just right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you know how you test for expectations is you ask yourself, am I saying the word should? Is it should be this way, or they should be doing this,
Yeah.
or it should look like this, or how come it's not like this?
Yeah.
I mean, there's an underlying current of an expectation that
Right.
Yeah.
you think it's something that it's not supposed to be.
Yeah. So
Whether
true.
realistic or unrealistic. Like, I mean, honestly, you know how you test for them? Go drive. Just go for a drive.
Just go for a drive.
Why is this guy cutting me off? Why don't they use their blinkers?
Oh, yeah.
I was in the vehicle today and somebody pointed it out. They're like, see, that's what I'm talking about. And I went, that's an expectation.
Yeah.
And now it's a spoken expectation. Like
Right.
he's put it out there. But it definitely, managing those and railing them in, because I think sometimes when I opened my social media feed, I had to go in with the expectation it's going to be a hot mess. And if I didn't expect that when I opened it, I was going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
Because it was.
It was.
That's the reality of it. In fact, I chose to take several breaks
Yeah.
just to turn it off because it was so toxic. and
Important.
frustrating. And I was like, I just want peace in the midst of this. And
Yeah.
so it was about managing our expectations. Of this.
Yeah. It's
But
good.
I think one of the things that you always talked about is, how do we help that with not just ourselves, but our leaders too, just the people around us. How do we lead them through their expectations?
Yeah.
And I think part of that is bringing clarity to that. Hey,
Right.
that's actually an expectation that you have.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
what this is. This is an expectation. In fact, we
So
did a
good.
lab on expectations this
Yeah.
last summer because
Which is what other people call classes, but we call
Yeah.
them life group labs.
Right.
Yes.
But we did one literally on this topic of expectations
Mm.
because I'd heard this conversation and had this conversation so many times during the pandemic.
Mm.
And I was watching people get frustrated and angry and they couldn't articulate why. And I could.
Yeah.
Because I could show them, dude, this is your unrealistic expectations of the world around you at
Mm-hmm.
play. And you have no power to change it.
Yeah.
And yet you're just cranky
Mm.
about it. And so let's deal with that. Let's
Yeah.
deal with expectations.
Jesus wants to give you a fruit
Yeah.
of his spirit.
That is not,
Yes.
yeah.
And it's kind and it's patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think expectations is huge. Managing them in yourself, helping
Yeah.
other people navigate them, helping lead them through that.
Yeah.
And when if I'm trying to show them the Jesus path forward, which is the ethics of Christ and how he loves one another, those things impact how I treat other people and what I expect from other people.
So good. Yeah.
Because if we realize that this world is broken and flawed and people are messy, I'm not shocked when they're messy and broken and
Right.
flawed.
Right. Yeah. It's so
Right?
true.
I
Yeah.
mean-
And I think when we're talking about managing expectations, you're right. It starts with us.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, but I have to manage those expectations with the team.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had to have conversations, and those happened all the time, as often as they were needed, which was sometimes every day.
Constant. Yeah.
Yeah, we were meeting
And
daily
then-
for a while there.
But
Right.
but then also our key leaders, because they were also managing their they weren't managing it until we stepped in to start helping
Yes.
them know how to think and what we were going to not how to think about this as a church.
Right.
That's what we were trying to tell. We didn't need to tell them how to vote. That's not
no,
what I
that's
mean.
not what we were talking about.
But what are we going to do as a church to respond? Because they didn't know what to tell their life groups
Right.
or other
Oh,
people
yeah.
that were calling them, because they were leaders.
Right.
People wanted to know what they thought.
Right.
So how do you speak well of Christ in this environment?
Yeah.
And so that was helpful as well. And I think that it's important that we understood, and you said this earlier, that we had to look to what is going to be beneficial and not just letting off steam.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. And because we all want to let off steam.
Yeah.
I still do.
Of course.
At times, but is it beneficial? And that is a really important motive and question behind what my next words are going to be.
Right.
Yeah. So how do I disseminate that information? Really important. So as we're wrapping this up, a couple things here that I think are key for us, thinking about what to communicate
Oh, yeah.
in the midst of times of tribalism, politics, and other dividing factors.
Yes.
What am I going to communicate? Well, my goal
Yep.
And we've told our church over and over and over, and I did it again this last weekend, and I'm going to keep doing it because vision leaks.
It does.
The goal gets misunderstood.
Yeah.
And we can easily cast it aside because these issues are truly deep within us. We feel them passionately,
We do.
but Jesus is deeper.
Yeah. Amen.
Jesus is deeper, and we want to drive him that deep in our life. So know what to think, what to communicate. Think about where we're going to communicate it.
Right.
How will we speak to our leaders? How will they know our heart about these things? Think about who we're going to talk to, who we're going to let talk to. So you guys were speaking to your teams on my behalf because I can't get to them all,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you were able to do that on your own. And then how often? Because you can't just say it once.
No.
Oh no, it's got.
Oh my word! People would call me and say, "Hey, you're not speaking to this issue. You're not speaking to this issue." I'm like, "Oh, actually, hold on. Here's 3 separate Sundays that I did speak to that issue. Here are the messages."
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not watching online. I was paying attention to social media. Well, don't, because I'm not talking about it
Yeah,
there.
it's not our
But
platform.
if you want to know what I think,
I'm over
you
here.
can go here.
Right.
And that was enlightening. Now, they can either choose to or they can choose not to.
Right.
But at least I've spoken to it. I'm leading.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best. And I can sleep at night.
Right.
Yeah. Any other last thoughts as we're wrapping this one up?
I honestly, the biggest benefit for me in the midst of all of this, of how to navigate it
Yeah.
as a staff person on the team, was simply, let's keep Jesus at the forefront.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving that direction. Let's keep leading people back to Christ.
Yeah.
Because all these other things they're just a distraction
Yeah.
off the heart of God, which is to see people redeemed
Yeah.
and lives transformed.
Good.
I mean, that for me was, okay, this is my foundation I'm working from.
Yeah.
Everything else is a sign on the road. Yes, and it's just trying to distract me and derail me. Because the truth is, I had to avoid getting sucked in.
Yeah.
You know, I
Right.
mean,
It's
right.
easy
That
to
was a
do.
part of the problem too, is it was easy to get sucked into these things. And I didn't want to do that because I wanted to stay the course. And so
Yeah.
for me, that was the big goal, was just keep that main thing, which is the heart of Christ.
Yeah.
That's how the church is always going to survive moving forward.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's good. It's where we go wrong.
Yeah.
When
Everything
we
else is gonna change
leave
around
that
us.
course.
but that course is always going to remain the same. I mean, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that we don't talk about all these important things. I want to reiterate that.
No,
we
that's not what I
do.
mean.
But we do it from God's perspective. And believe me, he has a lot to say
Right.
about these topics
Yeah.
from Scripture.
Absolutely.
But that's how we do it.
Right.
And I don't need to tout a political party line or a social unrest group
Right.
line in order to communicate the heart of God, because they don't. And when they do, it's not done. Well, actually, it's done in a confusing way.
Right.
And I don't want God's heart confused.
Right.
I want to say it in the way that he has said it.
Yeah. Amen.
And that's what our heart is to do, is to reflect his heart there.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important that as we keep the Jesus path moving forward in that it matters the attitude. It matters back
good.
again to valuing people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the attitude with which we share the truth that we know.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we just,
Good.
I mean, you can get riled up, but is that going to bring about the result that you need? You may feel riled up and you may have good reason to
Yeah.
be riled up.
Yeah.
There have been plenty
Yeah.
to be riled up about.
For sure.
But sharing things in an argumentative tone or in an attitude, high volume, angry, that's not how Christ would do it.
No.
I mean, I know he got angry, but
But he got angry with religious people.
he did
Yeah.
get angry
Pushing
with
the
religious
broken and
people.
flawed away.
Exactly right.
Share the
And so
truth in love.
Yeah.
we
We're
are
learning how
to
do
share,
it.
yeah.
That's what we're learning.
Come at it in an attitude that's caring and loving so that they can receive what you have to say.
Right. And by the way, people were very vocal. I want to make sure I say this, very vocal, that they loved how we chose this path.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
plenty,
Very-
lots.
I had a
Those
lot
Very
of people
beneficial.
thank you
with us.
so much for staying out of the fray
Absolutely.
and teaching
Yeah.
us how to navigate the fray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's good. Well, thank you for having this real conversation about this. Now, we don't know everything, but these
No.
are a few things that we have learned, and I hope it's been helpful for other church leaders and organizational leaders and those who are curious about the church as we're moving forward. So, well, thank you for joining us in real time as we're having conversations about leading people, organization, and change. And don't forget to like or subscribe, and please hit the bell icon so that you can get each podcast as they are downloaded. You won't miss one of them. Well, thanks so much for being with us, and we will look forward to being with you next time.